GMs for Hire.
Welcome back to another episode of GMs for Hire. I am Jamil. With me is Will, and today we are talking about NFL football. We are talking about the NFC North Division. As you can already see with my friend Will, he's proudly representing his Chicago Bears, who we will get to in a matter of time. But first, Will, we will have to talk about the big dogs of the division, the team you hate the most. We're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers, and they had an exciting offseason. Well, if you're a Packers fan, it really wasn't that exciting because your franchise quarterback was threatening to leave. He was threatening to retire. He wanted to get traded. He was doing everything in his power not to show up this season, to be quite honest. But alas, he showed up. He said this is his last time. He agreed to a one-year deal. Could this be his last year? I think we need to get a documentary crew in there to film Aaron Rodgers' last dance with the Green Bay Packers, if you ask me. Absolutely. So, Will, as a Bears fan and a non-biased or non-biased, however you want to do it, how do you feel about this being Aaron Rodgers' potential last season with the Packers?
I mean, it's going to be weird if he continues his NFL career and we see him anywhere else. Everything points to this being his last season, especially with him and Davante Adams both posting the last dance on their Instagram, right before they came back. I mean, it was kind of weird. At a point earlier this year, it seemed like Aaron Rodgers wanted to be on Jeopardy more than he wanted to be on the football field. But at the end of the day, as long as those two guys are there, they're a competing team. They're at least competing for the NFC Championship game because they never make it past that. But other than that, a light jab because I can't really go all the way. I mean, they're still a better team than us. But yeah, no, this Packers team is a very good team still. A lot of the core at least is still intact. Now they still don't really have a good secondary wide receiver outside of Davante Adams. I mean, it seems to be the trend every year. They got back Randall Cobb, which should be fun for Aaron, assuming that, obviously I'm assuming that him and Cobb didn't have any issues together. They ripped together in Green Bay for a while. You get to return a MVS and some people like St. Brown. So, I mean, there's going to be some smaller receivers and, that are still part and working into the system and everything. The guy I'm most concerned about this year is Robert Tonyan. And I want to see if he's going to continue to play like he did last year. He got a lot of work. And I don't know if it's just because of the inconsistency from the secondary wide receivers or what it was, but he was looking like a top 5, fantasy wise tight end last year, putting up 10 plus touchdowns. His rookie season was looking really good. And they established a great connection. So we'll be able to see what the Packers can do. I didn't think their offseason was that entertaining other than the fact that you didn't know what the hell Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams were going to do. Granted, their whole wide receiver core, and whenever they showed up, the whole entire offense was gone, which was kind of weird. But yeah, they're all back. Everything's back to normal for the Packers. They're ready to go. And so, as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, this team's going to compete. Obviously, I'm not looking forward to playing him, but I'm looking forward to hopefully the season after this.
Well, you literally took every single point I had about the Packers offense and said them all already. So I agree with you on a lot of those points. Tonyan, he had one of the biggest breakouts we've seen in a long time. And I think a big reason why he did that was because this team, quite frankly, has no reliable option as a second receiver. Valdez-Scantling, Lazard, Cobb, someone needs to step up out of those three this season to pair with Davante Adams, because Davante Adams, as good as he is, can he carry this team on his back for 2 straight seasons between him and Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Jones, we know, is good at running the ball. I'm interested to see what A.J. Dillon can do this year as the second running back with Jamal Williams now out of town. The dude is huge, so he's going to be able to carry some defenders, I think. So we'll see what he can do on the ground. I think they're going to have to rely a little bit more on the ground game because, like I just mentioned, who are they going to throw the ball to that's actually going to get open and catch the ball? I think that's the biggest issue for this team. They're going to have to figure that out sooner rather than later, if you ask me, if they want to get back to where they were last year, which was the NFC Championship game, because this team feels like they can compete for a Super Bowl, but do they necessarily have the pieces to get past the Buccaneers or any other top NFC team like the Rams, for example, or anybody else that emerges to get that far is my question with them. On defense, they're going to need some bounce back seasons from their outside guys, Zadarius Smith. He didn't have the best season last year. Obviously, he was still decent, but the year before he was a lot better. Also was Preston Smith on the other side. He's going to have to step up as well. At corner, they draft Eric Stokes to replace not really replaced. They brought back Jones on a 1-year deal, so we'll see what he can do out there. So how do you see things shaping up for the Packers defense this season?
The defense for the Packers is full of a bunch of players that are kind of underrated. Honestly, the Smiths coming off the edge are very impactful whenever they are on their game. Jair Alexander, the top 2-3 corner in the game easily. There's conversations of him up there with Stephon Gilmore and Jalen Ramsey. I think those have to be your top 3 right now. This defense is a great unit. Honestly, whenever it all comes together, it's just, I again, shout out to the Packers front office, because they continue to just poke the irritated bear. Going Eric Stokes in the first round. Why? There's so much worse things that you can address other than the cornerback position. I mean, you have one of the best in the game. You were still able to bring back Jones. Why are you going this route? I still don't understand. It's something that I'm going to scratch my head about all season. But again, if it's going to piss off Aaron Rodgers and potentially get him to where he doesn't want to play, I mean, I'm cool with it. I was totally fine. I just feel like the front office of the Packers, Jeff Gunther, I don't think that guy knows what the hell he's doing. But hey, the team's coming together. The team finds a way to the NFC Championship every single year and finds a way to lose it every single year. So do they have enough to do? Do they have enough? Did they make enough moves to get over the hump? I guess we'll see. But it seems like over the last decade, they haven't done anything to get over that hump. So, we haven't seen the Packers in the Super Bowl since what? 2009, whenever Rodgers won it. So it's been a minute. And so the Packers, I even saw a meme the other day that said the NFC Championship game is when some team, it was on Wikipedia. Some guy went on there and said the NFC Championship game is the game before the Super Bowl to see who represents the NFC, where some team beats the Green Bay Packers. That's not good. That's not good. That's your reputation. It's great that you can get there, but you got to be able to take that next step. And it's unfortunate. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best to do it, but they really are kind of stuck in limbo when it comes there. So, they typically have a high seed. The playoffs run through Green Bay, and then yet somehow they still find a way to lose. I mean, they did it last year with Tampa Bay, who ended up winning it all. But Tampa Bay is the same exact team they were last year. All their starters are back, and they even got more depth. So, I mean, the team didn't take any steps back, and so you got to hope that the Packers at least have to do something to surpass that. So maybe a trade later on in the season or something like that. But right now, I still see them as division winners in the NFC North, but I don't see them really getting much farther than that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with some of the points you just made. I personally didn't necessarily hate the Eric Stokes pick, but I do think that you needed to address at some point another receiver, which they failed to do in the offseason free agency and through the draft. So I think that will come back to bite them, and I think they might need to make an acquisition in the middle of the season, like you just mentioned. I also agree that they didn't necessarily get better. I still have them winning the division, but did they get better to compete with the Bucs, for example? No, I don't think so. But at the same time, if you're able to get to the NFC Championship again, all it takes is one game. When you have Aaron Rodgers, anything can happen. It just hasn't broke that way for them yet necessarily, but this could be the season. Who knows? But I think we both fairly agree that the Packers should still take this division.
Absolutely.
And second place will come down to a few different teams. Well, just 2 different teams, not 3 different teams. Who am I kidding?
No.
Between those 2 teams, we'll hit your boys first. The Chicago Bears. Obviously, the big headline this offseason was Justin Fields is in via the draft, the steal of the draft. If you ask me, I thought Justin Fields should have been the second quarterback off the board. He wasn't. He falls all the way to you guys, and I think you guys got a home run pick there. But before we can talk about him, it is still Andy Dalton season, at least to start off. Will, being the Bears fan, I'll sit back and listen to you. How do you feel about the season coming up and this Fields versus Dalton debate?
For week 1, I don't hate it, but only because it's the Rams. Like I don't want to throw Justin Fields straight to the fire and have him go up against Andy Dalton, have him go up against Jalen Ramsey, because the fan base in Chicago hasn't seen a good quarterback since Sid Luckman. It's been a minute. It's been some time since we've seen a quarterback of competency. I mean, Jay Cutler's still our all-time passing leader for Christ's sakes. But Justin Fields has been entertaining to watch so far. Week 2 against the Bills in preseason, he got a little roughed up. It was definitely a little rough to see, but whenever he came in against Miami, he looked really good. we are recording this before the final preseason game. Obviously, you will see this way after the final preseason game. But the fact that he is named the starter for that game is going to be, it's going to tell a lot. And I mean, the fan base has spoken. At the Buffalo Bills game, the preseason game in Chicago, as soon as Justin Fields walked onto the field, they gave him a standing O. The Chicago fan base is very excited for Justin Fields. And, you know, I think I've been a doubter of Justin Fields. Honestly, I've just been a big doubter of Ohio State quarterback products. It's the same thing with the University of Alabama. It's why I don't trust Tua. It's why I don't trust Mac Jones. But at the same time, Justin Fields, at least in his first NFL game, I know it's preseason, I know it's not first teamers, but he looked really confident. You know, there were some things that he was doing that Mitch Trubisky in his time didn't do. You know, I saw multiple plays in which he was looking at his primary read and then actually scanned the field and went somewhere else. That's something I didn't see in 4 years with Mitch Trubisky. And if he did, he typically overthrew or got pressured and had to make a terrible play. You know, he's seen whenever he was getting pressured by that Miami defense, he was able to stay composed and he stayed in the pocket as long as he could, but he knew that he had the ability to run away. And Mitch Trubisky always seemed to where if his first route, if his first go-to option was covered, he was moving. And that wasn't the case. You know, Justin Fields stayed composed. He stayed poised in the pocket. You know, there was a lot of things that I saw that I was very confident in with Justin Fields. But I still don't think you're going to see him right away. I think the fan base, if we start off pretty rough, the fan base is going to get rowdy. And we don't have an easy start to the schedule by any means. After like week 5, I think we only have about 2 winnable games. I know there's a Bengals game in there and a Lions game in there. But other than that, we face Cleveland, we face the Rams. I want to say the Bucks come in there at some point. So we have a very tough start to the schedule. The fan base is going to get antsy and they're going to be asking for Justin Fields. And it's just a matter of, it's a matter of when, really. Otherwise, this offense is very similar from last year. You know, the slot wide receiver is going to change because Anthony Miller is now in Houston. So who's it going to be? Is it going to be Rodney Adams, who's been having a killer preseason? Is it going to be Marquise Goodwin, the veteran? You know, there's some options. But Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, I love those wide receivers. I think they're going to have outstanding years. Granted, I think Mooney is set to just break out anytime now. I think he's ready to be a household name. You know, and Allen Robinson already a household name, top 10 wide receiver in the league. It's just a matter of, you know, can the quarterback play get us there? And can the defense step up and do exactly what they're supposed to do? So as of right now, I think we'll see Fields maybe week 5, week 6. But again, facing such a hard defense in Los Angeles, I don't hate that he's not starting. I just wish that they would kind of, you know, I just wish that they would kind of quit playing at the heartstrings a little bit about it.
Yeah, definitely. After you see what he did in the preseason, you know, you get really excited. You're like, this dude needs to be playing. But like you mentioned, you know, you're playing one of the top defenses in the league week 1 against the Rams, the likes of Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. Just off just those 2 guys alone, you know, it can create havoc, especially for a rookie in his first game. You're going to see a lot of different looks from them. So I can definitely see why you want Dalton to start the season. He'll probably play the first couple of weeks, then let Fields go. But, you know, your offense, I like the pieces on the outside and behind them. I like Montgomery. He had a breakout last season. I want to see what Cole Kmet could do. I'm interested to see if he can break out. But your offensive line could be a worry this season. We'll see if they can keep the quarterbacks upright. And on defense, you guys are stout in the front 7, but can your secondary going to step up this season, especially at corner outside of Jalen Johnson, who's great last season, his rookie year. But who's going to step up next to him is my question for your defense. So do you have any concerns about the defense this season?
Absolutely. Letting Kyle Fuller go was a real big head scratcher for me. I know last season we had cut him before the season started and then brought him back. And I mean, Kyle Fuller is one of the better corners in the league too. Very underrated. Him and Kendall Fuller, both, you know, they're both very good, you know, very good members of the secondary. Jalen Johnson, I absolutely loved him last year. I thought he was amazing out of Utah. I wasn't expecting him to play as well as he did. And he really, really, you know, impressed me last season. Eddie Jackson, on the other hand, ever since he got his bag, hasn't been playing like Eddie Jackson. You know, and that kind of concerns me a little bit. He hasn't been the super dominant safety that he was, you know, on his rookie contract. He got that money and he still plays well, but he doesn't play to the level that he was playing. I'm not saying that Eddie Jackson's washed up or overrated. I'm saying he went from like an A type of safety to like a B minus type of safety. I don't think he's taken that hard of a hit yet, but he could definitely be playing better. I know I've seen him do it. The secondary does kind of concern me a little bit. The other safety position is still a worry. Last year it was Tashawn Gibson, and he did decent. And then last year we had Kyle Fuller, which would be great, but obviously now we don't. He's in Denver. So who's going to fill into that second cornerback spot? We have yet to see. But the Bears need to figure something out. That front seven, though, whenever you're getting enough pressure in, it doesn't really matter who your secondary is in some situations, because if you're making them uncomfortable, they're going to make bad decisions anyway. So look for some rookies like Thomas Graham out of Oregon. I know we drafted him late in the rounds, late in the draft last year. Look for some other people like Buster Skrine to continue and try to give something. I think the Bears, they have a chance to be a wild card team. It's just, is the offense going to be competent enough? And can the offense keep the team on the field long enough to where the defense can get some rest?
Yeah, for sure. The front seven, like you mentioned, it's so good that they might be able to hide some flaws in the secondary. But, against the great teams, they're going to find ways to buy time. And that's when the secondary is truly going to get tested. We've talked about, you're going to have a tough stretch. You open up with the Rams, obviously. But what are some other games you're looking at in the schedule that are really tough, that are sticking out to you for the Bears this season?
Whenever I was looking at the schedule earlier, obviously anytime you face the Packers, it's a tough one. I know we play Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay later on in the season. Another game that I think is really going to stand out, which is going to be a game that I think Fields will already be in by, is in November against Baltimore. It's in Chicago, but that's a tough secondary. That's a tough defense, a top 5 defense. There's a lot of teams on here that could give the Bears fits. If I'm not mistaken, based off of strength of schedule, the Bears have a top 5 hardest schedule this year, which is not enjoyable.
Not fun. You don't want that.
Yeah, no, don't want to hear that, especially for a rookie quarterback. But last year, or I should say the last time we played the AFC North, we swept the division. We took down the Browns, Bengals, Steelers, and Ravens all that year, the last time we played them. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Mitch Trubisky, so, it's not far-fetched. Can we do it again? Maybe. But these are completely different look teams. I mean, this is a Joe Burrow led Bengals team. This is a Baker Mayfield led Browns team. This is a Lamar Jackson led Baltimore Ravens team. I mean, the league is completely different since the last time we played them. So it's tough divisions all the way around. We're playing them. We're playing the NFC West with the Rams, the 49ers, the Seahawks, which is probably from top to bottom the best division in football. This is a hard year for the Bears. Looking at the schedule, this is going to be kind of tough. And I just don't know if they have the offensive upside to keep up with some of these teams this year, especially because I've seen years where the defense has to spend damn near 70% of the game on the field, and it makes our defense look terrible. And our defense is great. Our defense is what we build our team on. So I'll be interested to see exactly how we can combat it. I just need some offensive competency, and I need that offensive line to hold up just enough for David Montgomery to be able to do his thing.
It's funny. You mentioned a couple of the big time teams you guys play. You guys have a stretch where you play Green Bay, at Tampa, home against San Francisco, at Pittsburgh, bye week Ravens. That's a very, very tough stretch for anybody to go through. So I wish you guys all the best when you go through that 6-game stretch right there, because honestly, you're gonna need it to beat some of those teams. It's gonna be honestly, what you guys do.
I know we start off with a Bengals game. There's a Lions game, a Raiders game in there, but I think then right after that, we go into that tough stretch. Honestly, look for Dalton to start through like week 6. And then after we start getting into that thick stretch that you're talking about, probably after that Bucks game, maybe I could see Fields starting against the 49ers that next week, and going 49ers, Steelers, Ravens going into the bye, or 49ers, Steelers, then going into the bye. I could see Justin Fields coming in around week 6, week 5, maybe even. I just think they're going to give Dalton a chance, and I think he's got a couple easy games. Obviously, the Rams game's tough, but I mean, with teams such as the Bengals, that should be a W. With teams such as the Raiders, that should be a W. So Dalton's going to get a couple of cheap wins in here, but look to see Fields by like week 6 easily.
Yeah, when your schedule first came out and the draft happened, all that, I was trying to map out when Justin Fields might make his first appearance. If he's not in by those games, I would fully expect his first game to be at the very least week 11 versus Baltimore, because you're coming off that bye week. Because traditionally you want that bye week to get some extra reps in, or you want to find an easier opponent, even though no game is necessarily easy in the NFL. But your quote unquote easier opponents are all coming early in weeks 4 and 5, like Detroit and Las Vegas. So We'll see what they decide to do with Justin Fields, whether it's early, whether it's late. At some point, we're going to see him, and it's going to be exciting for the Bears and the rest of your fan base, because you guys haven't had a quarterback with this kind of upside in a very, very long time. And I'm happy for you guys, and I hope to see him do well, and hope you guys prosper with your quarterback. But moving on this division, let's say another team that has not necessarily a quarterback problem, but a quarterback inconsistency last season that led to them having a very, very rough season, a season that they did not see coming. And that's the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that had been a perennial playoff contender for the past few seasons. And last year, they hit a car crash is what happened. I don't know what happened to this team. Their defense regressed severely. Their offense didn't play good whatsoever outside Dalvin Cook. Really, there wasn't a lot of consistency. This was a team I was high on. I think this is a team that has a lot of bounce back potential this season. They're going to have a first-year play caller. Kubiak's son's going to come in and take over. He's going to have Dalvin Cook at his exposure. One of the top 5 running backs in the game. He's a do-it-all guy. The question is, can this offensive line hang up for Kirk Cousins to make plays? Because Kirk Cousins, he's not bad when he has the time, but the problem is if he doesn't have the time, he's running for his life, and he gets very, very bad, and it happens very, very fast. So, how do you see things going for the Vikings this season?
You hit the nail right on the head. I mean, this is a team that was projected to potentially, give the Packers fits for the division last year. This is a team that defensively looked absolutely outstanding, and offensively looked like they had the pieces to get it done. And it seemed to be the exact opposite last year. The offense really stood out, and that defense just kind of disappeared, which is weird because they didn't lose any personnel. I mean, they still had Danielle Hunter, they still had Eric Hendricks.
Hunter and Barr were hurt for a long time though, and I think that really screwed him over. When you lose your best pass rusher and probably your best off-ball linebacker, and those guys were veterans in the locker room. So all that put together, I think it was part of the reason why they ended up crashing down.
Right. But this year, outside of Harrison Smith, it's a completely new secondary. I mean, they got Patrick Peterson, they got Rashad Breeland, Xavier Woods. There's all types of different new names out there now. And so I'm interested to see what it's going to be. But I mean, most of the defense is still there. Danielle Hunter's back. He should be healthy. Eric Hendricks is back. He should be healthy. Anthony Barr, the same thing. If this team can stay on the field, this team's disgusting. On paper, this is an amazing roster. I still, as much as I should hate the Vikings, they are an entertaining team to watch. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, they're very exciting offensive pieces, and the defense is strong enough to get things done. I think we're going to see more of the Vikings-esque team this year. Granted, everybody can stay healthy. And if people are on the field, this team's a contender. This team is honestly at minimum a wild card contender. I think the Vikings could be a very dangerous team. Justin Jefferson stepped in immediately, got 1,400 yards and some odd touchdowns. A lot. I can't remember the exact number, but I can tell you it was plenty. And I can tell you a couple of those came against my Bears. And again, Adam Thielen is a little bit of inconsistency last year. He wasn't exactly the Adam Thielen we're used to seeing, but then again, last year he was a number 1. This is the first year we saw him as a number 1 because Stephon Diggs was there to take away targets from him. And this year last year he had to step up and be the true number 1 over Justin Jefferson. And that's when you saw Justin Jefferson flourish. So they consistently have 2 solid wide receivers, and one of them is going to be doing good. One of them is going to get their reps every single game. Dalvin Cook, like you said, a top 5 running back in the league easily. Kirk Cousins can be a little inconsistent, especially when the lights are on bright. But I still think this team has enough to get it done. I think last year was kind of like an off fluky year. I think the Vikings just happened to be one of those teams that kind of fell victim to the COVID year. And I think this year they should be right back to normal, in my opinion. They should be right back up there in contention, and easily fighting for the second place spot in the NFC North, maybe even giving the Packers a run for their money if they hit their potential.
Yeah, me and you are definitely on the same page here. Like I said a second ago, like this is one of my bounce back teams this season. I don't see how this team can be just as I don't see how they can be as bad as they were last year because Mike mentioned with the defense, they replaced the whole secondary. This team was very, very young at corner last year. They started 2 rookies for almost the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost unheard of in the NFL to play 2 rookie cornerbacks and expect to succeed. It's pretty laughable if you want to do that. It's really hard, no matter how good of a defensive coach you are in Mike Zimmer. It's hard to get 2 rookies, especially at corner, one of the hardest positions to play in the whole
Absolutely.
league, to play at a high level. You know, you're asking for a lot of those guys, and they didn't get the results they wanted. So they go in, they get some veterans, which I think is going to really help this team. This is a veteran-led team on defense, and I think that's going to show. On offense, my question marks for them are, like you said, after Thielen and Jefferson, where are you getting your production from? You need a third receiver to step up, and I'm looking at a guy like Irv Smith to step up at tight end this season. Kyle Rudolph is gone, so I expect Smith to really flourish this season as the main tight end, or even the second guy. You know, they need someone outside of those 2 guys to be a consistent threat on offense for them to go where they want to go, if you ask me. But looking at this schedule, Will, what are some games that are jumping out at you for the Minnesota Vikings?
Minnesota Vikings schedule. I have to pull it up real quick.
Well, I'll tell you right now that they start off with some winnable games in their first 6 weeks. They have the Bengals, very winnable first game. Then they have Arizona, Seattle. We mentioned the West is tough. Cleveland stuff, and then they get Detroit, Carolina. So they can win 3 or 4 of those games and start out early, and I think they could really get the ball rolling for themselves in this division.
I like that 3-game stretch you just mentioned between the Cardinals, Seahawks, and Cleveland. I think that'll be a good eye test to see exactly where the Vikings are this season. I mean, it's not their first game. Obviously, they're getting that game against the Bengals to start off, but then 3 out of division games against playoff S teams. The Vikings are a team that should not have trouble competing for a wild card spot easily. This should be a team that should on paper do very well. This is a team that, could be up there and compete for those wild card spots, especially if there's 3 of them. Those 3 teams, the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks, Cleveland Browns, obviously all 2 of the 3 in the playoffs last year. Arizona just falling 1 game short behind Chicago. These are playoff type teams, and a 3-game stretch early in the season, it's going to set the tone to see who the Vikings are actually going to be. So keep an eyes week 2 through 4 on the Minnesota Vikings, and maybe we'll have an idea of what kind of team they're going to be going forward.
For sure. I'm looking at the end of their schedule too, man. They end the season like this. They go Pittsburgh, Chicago, Rams, Green Bay, Chicago again. So y'all can either play spoiler or play your way into the playoffs versus them. And then they got to deal with Green Bay, LA, and Pittsburgh, all 3 playoff teams from last year. That's not the easiest end of the season for the Vikings. So we'll definitely see what Kirk Cousins and company do to finish the season strong there and try to work their way into one of those last playoff spots. To round out this division, we're going to talk about the lowly Detroit Lions. It's the end of an era over there in Detroit. I don't know if you're yawning because you're tired, or if you're yawning because we're about to talk about Lions and your pal Jared Goff. Yep. Either one will suffice for this. But it's the end of an era in Detroit. Matthew Stafford is gone. Matt Patricia is gone. Things are changing for Detroit, hopefully for the better if you're a Detroit fan, because it's going to be a little bit of a process, I think. I think Jared Goff's going to come in. He's going to be a bridge guy. He's a guy that's won in his past. He's had his fair share winning over the past few seasons, but the turnover bug kept biting him in the butt, and it made Sean McVay say, all right, you got to get out of here. You're not the quarterback for me. So now he's rocking with Detroit. His weapons are a little bit lackluster compared to what he had in LA. He's got Tyrell Williams, Rashad Perriman working deep. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets drafted in the middle of the rounds to work the middle, along with Hawkinson at tight end. The running backs look good. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, I think that's a good little tandem to run the ball with. But outside of that, I think this team is going to struggle to put up points. Tell me about it, Will.
If this team manages to win more than 4 games, I'll be impressed. Shout out to the new coaching staff. This is already going to be off to a tough start. Dan Campbell said that he's going to come out and he's going to punch people in the mouth. And then whenever they go over, he's going to kick them in the teeth. And all that. And he basically came out here and just said he's going to murder every single NFL team. And then he got the softest quarterback in the league. So that's kind of tough. They have absolutely no weapons when it comes to offense other than TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson is an absolute amazing tight end, top 5 in the league right now. But you got to get a quarterback to get it to him. Jared Goff is not the guy. I don't. Guys, folks, it's 2021 and my opinion hasn't changed. It's still Jared Goff. What better way than to prove that I'm going to be correct than to put Jared Goff in a system with a first-year coach with no weapons and a terrible defense and see what the hell happens. The only thing that's going really well for him is that offensive line. That offensive line has 3 names on there that should absolutely be studs in Ragnow, in Decker, and in Sewell. So they've got plenty of protection for Goff. But I think that's more going to affect Swift. I think if Swift can stay healthy, he'll actually perform like he was supposed to perform. Don't pull any week 1 antics where you miss the game-winning touchdown right there in the middle of your hands. That was kind of tough to watch. As a Bears fan, I smiled, not going to lie. But regardless, this Lions team is not good. You went from Matt Stafford and Kenny Golladay to Terrell Williams and Jared Goff. I don't know about you, but that sounds like 2 steps down. That sounds like everything is moving in the wrong direction. Poor St. Brown just happened to be in the lap of the Detroit Lions, and he happens to be the poor guy who has to go there. Same with Penei Sewell. But regardless, this team is not going to be anything to write home about. I think they've only done everything in their power to get worse this year. The only thing that I could say definitely stepped up is the offensive line with Penei Sewell. And to add another name to that line is amazing. So maybe their run game is going to be great, but I still think their pass game is going to suffer significantly, not even just because of Jared Goff, but out of TJ Hawkinson, who gets targets on that team. It's Tyrell Williams, who's never been a one in his life, and it's not going to start now. And St. Brown at a USC, who is just getting his feet wet in the NFL. You can't have too high of expectations for the kid because you're going to let yourself, you're going to fall short of him. The defense, they've got some decent names on the defense, throughout the team, but altogether as a unit, it still doesn't excite me. The Lions are going to be the laughingstock of this division for sure.
Yeah, this team's definitely going to struggle. I mean, let's just be honest. Like you mentioned, who outside TJ Hawkinson, who's going to get the ball. St. Brown's going to work the slot, but outside you got Williams, Perriman, 2 guys that have been inconsistent their whole career, struggle with injuries too. So we didn't even talk about that. If someone goes down, then they really have no one really to rely on. They have Quintez Cephas. They picked him last year, I think, out of Wisconsin. But, outside of those guys, they're going to need an unsung hero to step up out there on defense. Jamie Collins goes back to being an off-ball guy. They got Flowers and Okwara coming off of the edge. Those guys are solid. Their secondary is young. I think they have potential. Jeff Okudah, Amani Warrior, Tracy Walker, Will Harris. It's not a terrible secondary. You could show me some worse guys. They need Okudah to step up. They need to play more games this season and be more effective as that top guy they picked last year. But yeah, this team's going to get scored on. They're going to struggle to put up points. And at the end of the day, that's going to make them be one of the lower ranked teams in the league. And it's going to be a process. So, they're going to have a high draft pick. They don't necessarily need to go quarterback because Goff's still under contract. So you can build up that defense. Then maybe next year go quarterback. They have a lot of different options on the table. I like Penei Sewell. I like getting an anchor of that line for the next decade. So things are slowly maybe starting to turn the right direction for the Lions, but the key word was slowly. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen this season. I think they're definitely going to struggle.
If Dan Campbell was here, he'd push us to the ground and kick us in the teeth. But I mean, that's just the Detroit Lions way, apparently. Like you said, I mean, there's some names on here, like I said, as well. There's some names on this defense that get me, that I enjoy. Okudah and Warrior is a good young cornerback group, but the thing is that they're young, and I mean they are young.
That's like what we mentioned with the Vikings. When you play young corners, look what happened to them. So
you're going to get exposed. It's going to happen. And Okudah was a number 3 pick, but Warrior was a 4th round pick and looking like a better looking like a better cornerback than Okudah last year.
Mm-hmm. He was a lot better than Jeff last season. And Jeff's got to step up this season. He only played 9 games. And when he played, he didn't necessarily look the sharpest. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on him this season.
Absolutely. You're going to learn a lot about the Lions' future here soon, but they are young corners. I'm just and I think they both have a lot of potential to go somewhere in the NFL to be very serviceable corners in the league. Jeff Okudah, obviously a number 3 pick, was supposed to be the next Ramsey. You don't take a cornerback that high without high expectations, and so you're expecting great things out of Okudah. Awaria has just been a great pick for them in the late rounds, and has done very well to come up and basically be their cornerback 1. And so we'll see exactly what they can do. There's some players on there on their defense that are fun and exciting names that are just way past their prime, like a Jamie Collins, like a Trey Flowers, like a Michael Brockers even. They've got some guys on there that are fun names, but altogether the timing and excuse me, and the timing and everything else and just coming together. And plus with their offense inconsistencies or I should say incompetencies, that I think they're going to have, they should, I don't know if that defense is going to be on the field a lot, and so it's going to be tough for the Detroit Lions. I don't think they move out of the cellar this year. And especially since the NFC North is set up the way it is to play the AFC North, which has 3 playoff teams, and the NFC West that could have 4 playoff teams. The Lions are kind of screwed. The Lions probably the Lions probably have a tougher schedule than the Bears just because they have to play the Bears instead of the Lions. And so that they're going to be off tough, and it's going to be a long year for Detroit fans.
Yeah, we both definitely don't see the Lions doing anything too crazy this season, so we don't necessarily need to take too much of a deep dive into their schedule. But I do want to tell you their beginning of their season because, Will, my friend, it's tough. They got the Niners, the Packers, and the Ravens in the first 3 weeks.
And then the Bears, aren't the Bears week 4 or are they week 5?
They're week 4, followed by the Vikings. Then they play the Bengals. So
the Bengals is their first potential winnable game. I mean,
yeah, that's not a good start for the Lions by any means necessary, man.
If all teams are playing like they should, that Bengals team is that first game that they could possibly win, and they shouldn't win that one. The Bengals have a lot of guys on their team that, if they can all come together cohesive as a unit, they should be a much more successful team than the Lions. We saw Burrow do some pretty great things before his injury without an offensive line. And granted, they still don't really have much of an offensive line, but they still have some decent pieces on defense to get things done. Jesse Bates is a top safety in the league. Very, very underrated, very underrated. And they have some other players on defense that can step up and do the thing. The offense, if it can come together, if Joe Mixon can stay healthy, he's a decent running back. Joe Burrow, whenever he gets back on the field, he did a very good job in his rookie campaign while he was there. Jamar Chase needs to get some glue on his hands and learn how to catch a damn football. But other than that, this is a team that should beat the Lions. Honestly, if I'm looking throughout the schedule, the Lions have to be the underdog in every single game they play, unless they face. Yeah, they have to face an NFC. They have to face a team from the NFC East. And I'm assuming
they play the Eagles. They play the Eagles and the Falcons, and those are potentially the only 2 games that I could see them being favored in.
That's tough. This is looking like a bottom.
Actually, they probably won't even be a favorite in the game because the Falcons game is in Atlanta, so it's rare that you're there going to beat the away.
Especially with the offensive ability that
the away favorite's rare especially for a team like Detroit. It's looking like a rough season for the Lions, but like I said, it's slowly possibly starting to turn around. So if you're a Lions fan, all hope maybe isn't lost. Just for one season, it definitely will be lost, though.
You might be the first team to go 0-17, but probably not. So it's fine. I say that as a Bears fan, and they always manage to take one from us every year. So they'll find a way. They'll kick our ass in Soldier, and we'll go to Ford, and we'll kick their ass. It'll be fine.
If y'all get beat bad by the Lions, I'm not gonna let you hear the end of it. I have to be honest with you.
That's fine. I understand. I really do get it.
That was no disrespect to the Lions.
I'm fully confident in Jalen Johnson to be able to cover Tyrell Williams, and I'm fully confident in our unidentified cornerback 2 to be able to cover Brashad Perriman. So, and I think our defense is going to do just enough to make Jared Goff, soil his pants a couple of times. So I'm feeling all right.
Well, Will's confident his Bears are going to take care of his arch nemesis, Jared Goff. As far as the rest of the division goes, we got the Packers taking it home with the Vikings and Bears kicking for second and third, both possibly playing for a wild card spot. We'll definitely see what happens with those 2 teams. But for that, I was Jamil. That was Will. This was the NFC North division. Thank you guys for watching.
They're gone. Hell yeah.